Forrester returns from Paris with the kind of energy that makes hallways stop vibrating and hearts speed up. He steps off the elevator at Forrester Creations carrying a garment bag, a passport that still smells like jet fuel, and a decision that was made somewhere over the Atlantic. He is done letting other people write the ending to his mother's story. He is here to protect the Taylor-Ridge engagement, and he is not easing into it. He is declaring it. In Taylor Hayes' office, the reunion is fast, real, and anchored in purpose. No sightseeing recap, no pastry jokes from Rudo Rivali, just a son folding his mother into a tight hug and saying, "I'm back for the wedding." Taylor studies his face like a doctor checking a pulse. She hears the certainty. She feels the weight behind it. She tells him that the date is almost set, that Ridge wants simple vows and family close. But the final call keeps slipping because pressure keeps coming from history, from Eric, from that old triangle that never stays flat. Thomas nods once. "Then I'll help you set it," he says, not as a request but as a vow. The first stop after that vow is not a fitting room, it's a confrontation. Thomas heads for Brooke Logan's office with an agenda as clean as a pattern block. Warn her, clearly, loudly, and without the wiggle room she specializes in. Brooke is at her desk, pen capped, phone face down, the portrait of calm someone practices when they know the building is about to shake. Katie is standing near the window, arms folded, reading her sister's posture like a long novel, with no last chapter. Thomas doesn't knock. He closes the door behind him and takes the kind of breath that signals there will be no polite preamble. "Stay out of it," he says, straight to Brooke, not raising his volume because he wants each word to land. "My mother and Ridge are engaged. You will not interfere. Not with nostalgia, not with proximity, not with that open-door version of just checking in you've used for years. It's over." Katie's eyes cut to Brooke, then to Thomas, because the temperature just dropped and rose at the same time. Brooke leans back, chin lifted a millimeter. "You don't decide my relationship with Ridge," she answers, soft enough to register as control, sharp enough to register as intent. "He's not a garment you can pin, Thomas. He's a man who makes his own choices." Thomas holds her gaze. "Then hear me making mine. If you push your way into this engagement, if you tilt him with those remember when whispers, I push back publicly and professionally. Steer clear." He turns for the door. Brooke doesn't follow. She doesn't throw a drink, doesn't throw a memory. She lets him leave, then exhales the kind of breath that tastes like steel and rose, because if Thomas thinks a warning is a wall, he has forgotten how many doors Brooke has built out of warnings. The hallways carry news faster than press releases. By lunch, Thomas warned Brooke is a sentence running like a seam through the whole building. Receptionists feel it. Pattern makers feel it. Models in robes feel it in the way clips snap a little harder. And in the executive suite, Eric Forrester is already sharpening the point he has been making for weeks. He invites Ridge into the CEO office that used to feel like a sanctuary and now feels like a courtroom. Donna is not there. This isn't a honey and smile conversation. It's legacy talk. It's brand talk. It's the voice of a patriarch who built an empire on fabric and decisiveness. Eric lays out the case without theatrics. The media still associates the Forrester name with Brooke and Ridge mythology. Shareholders like stability. Clients buy fantasy, but they also buy predictability. Taylor is a good woman, he says, and means it. But the company doesn't need another reinvention period while you figure out your heart. Choose the story that doesn't make the cover for the wrong reasons. Ridge listens, jaw tight, guilt tugging, pride resisting, love muddying everything. He knows Eric is not simply pushing Brooke. He's pushing order. He's pushing the version of Ridge who acts instead of drifts. But Ridge also remembers the phone call that brought Taylor back from 1,000 past hurts. He remembers the calm in her smile, the quiet in her hands, the sense that with her it could be simpler this time, less fireworks, more fire. He leaves the office with his head full of competing truths and walks straight into Taylor in the corridor, still radiant from Thomas' return. Eyes bright at the sight of the man she has loved through eras and illnesses and intervals. She takes his hand without checking who's watching. Let's pick the date, she says. Enough hesitating. Let's lock it in. Ridge kisses her forehead because that feels like safety, and it feels like honesty. Tonight, he says. We'll do it tonight. And then his phone buzzes with a text from Eric that reads like a verdict. Call me before you finalize anything. Taylor sees the screen light and doesn't ask. She has decided not to surrender momentum to other people's texts ever again. She threads her arm through ridges and keeps moving. She believes love wins when you keep walking. The problem is that love here is a crowded hallway. The afternoon turns into a string of micro battles. Carter steps into Ridge's office to discuss contracts and ends up talking about how PR will spin whichever choice Ridge makes. Zende pretends to be focused on a ham while he eavesdrops on a stairwell summary of the Thomas Brooke flare-up. Steffi arrives, catching the backdraft, protective of her mother. Proud that her brother finally drew a line, wary of how lines in this family bend under heat. Hope hears whispers and feels the old ache in her chest because Thomas is a different man now, but history leaves outlines. She doesn't want to be dragged into a war that isn't hers. But she also doesn't want him to burn himself protecting a castle where he once nearly collapsed. She texts in neutral, "Human, think proud you're standing up for family. Don't lose yourself again," and puts her phone face down because neutrality has a cost too. As the sun slides behind glass and the building shifts from day to night energy, Thomas moves again. This time he is not issuing warnings, he is setting stakes. He walks through the design studio where seam rippers click like metronomes, then into the main showroom where a florist is testing arrangements for a not-yet-pink ceremony. He directs choices like an executive producer, fewer lila, more structure, no lace that reads as nostalgia. Every decision is another brick under Taylor's feet. He is building a runway for her vows. Eric watches from the threshold with a look that blends respect for the craft and skepticism for the campaign. He appreciates action. He distrusts pressure that doesn't come from him. He asks Thomas to step aside and keeps his voice grandfather-level calm. "You want what's best for your mother. I respect that. But this house has survived because we don't bulldoze our way through hearts." Thomas doesn't blink. "We survived because we finally stopped letting Brooke rewrite our endings." Eric's smile is the kind that means careful. He walks away. The day was supposed to end with wine, a calendar, and a wedding planner's pen. Instead, it drags all its tension to one point, the CEO office just before closing. The room where Ridge stands at the window with his back to the door because staring at the skyline is easier than staring at his choices. He has told Taylor tonight. He has promised Eric a call. He has heard Thomas warning ricochet through the building. When the door opens, he expects Taylor, maybe Brooke, maybe both, like so many nights where history shows up uninvited. It's Thomas. No preamble. No knock. Just a son who has spent a lifetime watching his father's indecision cost people he loves. "We're setting the date," Thomas says. Now Ridge turns. He doesn't make it gentle. "You don't schedule my wedding, son. I'm scheduling peace," Thomas fires back. "For once, I'm not letting us become a cliffhanger because Brooke remembered a song and Grandpa Eric wants a press release that won't make his blood pressure spike. Mom has waited. You've promised." Pick a day. Ridge moves closer, eyes narrow, not to intimidate but to reduce the space where words can keep multiplying. "You think this is about press? You think it's about Brooke humming an old melody? It's about me not marrying anyone while I'm still tethered to a past I can't pretend doesn't exist. I love your mother. I want that life, but I won't walk her down an aisle with ghosts tugging the train." Thomas shakes his head. He came ready for this speech. Then cut the ghosts loose. That's the choice. Not Brooke or Mom. Courage or drift. Ridge laughs once, a short, tired sound. "Spare me the lecture on courage from the man the world just learned not to fear." It's a jab Thomas takes without flinching. The old version of him would have cracked. This one doesn't. "I earned that," he says evenly. "And I'm still here, clear-headed, asking you to act like a Forrester who leads instead of a man who waits for the wind to decide which way the flag looks better." The room tightens. Outside the door, footsteps slow because everyone can feel weather changing. Taylor is 2 quarters away, finishing a call with the planner, believing that when she walks in she and Ridge will pencil a date that stops feeling hypothetical. Brooke is at the far end of the hall, pretending to scroll her phone while timing her approach for maximum coincidence. Eric is in his office, phone in hand, thumb hovering over Ridge's number, torn between letting his son choose and making the choice for him the way founders do when they smell risk. Ridge looks at Thomas and sees the kid who used to sit on his drafting stool swinging his legs, the teen who got lost, the man who fought his way back, the son who is now trying to do right by his mother with a ferocity that feels like love and sounds like an ultimatum. You think pushing me makes this stronger? Ridge asks. You think mom wants a wedding you bullied onto a calendar? I think mom wants a husband who wants her out loud, Thomas answers, voice low and precise. I think you want to be that man and you're afraid of the fallout. So I'll carry the fallout. Put it on me. Tell Grandpa it was my idea. Tell the press I rushed you. Protect Brooke from the optics if that makes you sleep. But stop pretending the decent thing is delay. Delay is a decision dressed as manners. The line lands. It slices. Ridge's eyes flash because the truth inside it is inconvenient and direct. He walks to the credenza, picks up the leather folio that holds the event proposals, flips it open, and lets his fingers hover over the list of Saturdays like a man holding a match over a fuse. Then he closes it. Not like this, he says. Not with a threat humming under the vows. I won't do that to your mother. She deserves a yes that isn't dragged out of me by a son who means well and forgets I'm still the father. Thomas breathes through the sting. Then answers with the line that turns a sharp conversation into a civil war. Then prove you're the father by choosing the family that isn't built on doubting my mother. The door clicks. Eric appears, not barging, not timid, just present. The head of the house walking into the room where his house is splitting. He asks if he should return later. Ridge tells him to stay. Thomas doesn't look away. Eric says the words he came to say. If you're marrying Taylor, we need a plan. If you're not, we need a different plan. What we cannot do is bleed. He glances toward the hallway where he knows Brooke's silhouette can materialize out of air and where he prays Taylor's steps won't land on a sentence she can't unhear. He favors Brooke for the brand. He respects Taylor for the steadiness. He wants Ridge to choose without detonating goodwill. He wants the impossible, and he wants it now. Ridge folds his arms. I said tonight, he repeats. And I meant it. He looks at Thomas. But not in this minute. Get out. Let me breathe. Let me be the one who tells Taylor the date. Thomas doesn't move. You won't, he says, not as an insult, but as a diagnosis. Not unless someone makes today heavier than tomorrow. Ridge steps forward, and the last space between father and son disappears. Leave, he says. It's calm. It's final. It's the kind of instruction that created a company and raised a family. Thomas holds for one beat longer, then turns. He opens the door and there is Taylor, bouquet binder in her hands, timing perfect and tragic. Her eyes flick from Thomas' set jaw to Ridge's closed folio to Eric's gathered whirring. She reads it all. She doesn't cry. She asks one question. Is it tonight? The hallway stills. Brooke is 10 steps back, breath caught, calculating how to intercept fate without touching it. Eric watches his son like a director waiting for the line that saves the act. Ridge lifts the folio, opens it again, and lands his finger on a date because sometimes choice is the only way to stop time from drowning you. 2 Saturdays from now, he says. Sunset. Small ceremony. Family only. Taylor nods. Relief doesn't flood so much as settle. Thomas exhales a fraction. Eric does not smile, but attention in his shoulders shifts because at least he can work with clarity. Then, like a bell, Brooke's voice floats down the corridor, gentle as a question and heavy as a history book. Congratulations, she says, stepping into view. Truly, she looks at Ridge a beat too long for the word truly to feel safe. The room absorbs the moment the way a dress absorbs a spill, quickly, but with a stain that won't vanish under light. Night swallows the building and nobody goes home. They just migrate to new corners of the same fight. Taylor meets with the planner and locks vendors, decisive, efficient, refusing to be scared by shadows. Thomas drafts a press strategy that features commitment, family, and forward Modiono triangles, no nostalgia, no bait for tabloid algorithms. Eric sends 3 emails to ComKey partners, choosing phrases that sound like stability. Brooke sits in her car, hands on the wheel, not starting the engine because memory is playing extended cuts, and the man who promised to make things right just made a choice that isn't her. Rich stands alone in the showroom, staring at a dress form like it might offer counsel. He loves Taylor. He can picture the vows. He can almost feel the ring. He can also feel the pull of every Christmas, every rescue, every ruin with Brooke. And he can hear his father's expectations scratching at the edges of a decision that should belong to his heart. He has set a date. He has started a clock. The house should be quiet, but it hums. In corners, allegiances solidify. Donna will keep Eric from turning the wedding into a press conference. Katie will keep Brooke from sprinting into a mistake dressed up as a grand gesture. Steffi will keep Thomas from going nuclear if the smallest tremor shakes the plan. Hope will keep her distance and send practical grace when it matters. Carter will keep the paperwork clean. Zende will keep the collection on schedule because dresses still have to walk no matter who's walking down an aisle. And in the center, Ridge will keep breathing like a man who just realized that setting a date is not the same thing as ending a war. The next morning arrives without softness. Thomas' warning to Brooke has hardened into an event people take positions around. The Forrester Civil War is not something anyone says on record, but it's how the building feels to visions of love, to versions of legacy, to men, father and son standing on either side of a line drawn in a conference room that once housed charity galas and champagne toasts. There is no punch thrown, no headline scandal, no ripped gown. The fight is cleaner and crueler. It's a conflict of influence, of timing, of whose definition of family gets to frame the photographs on the mantle. Ridge and Thomas cross paths twice and exchange updates instead of ideas. Planners confirmed, Thomas says. Ridge nods. Thank you. Brooke reached out. Ridge adds, honesty in the open, because secrecy is fuel. Thomas nods. Did you answer? Not yet. Ridge says. It is both the truth and the battlefield. My desk. The house is set on a course that can't afford another sharp turn. And still the wind blows. Eric's well-meant calls, Brooke's careful grace, Taylor's steady hope, Thomas' fierce protection each pulls. Ridge stands in his office, the sunset throwing a gold line across the table where the folio lies open to the date he chose. He touches it, as if he can feel the day. He hears his son's challenge, his father's counsel, his own heart's hesitation, and he whispers the only thing that can carry him from here to vows. Do it right, then he turns out the light. The war isn't over. The calendar is, for now. The Forrester Civil War ignited by a single warning has crystallized into sides, into plans, into a ceremony that may heal the house or expose every fracture under the flowers. Thomas came back from Paris to protect his mother's engagement, and he did more than warn Brooke. He dragged the conversation into the open, forced a choice, and stood his ground until his father made one. Rich picked a date, but the real decision is the daily 09 every look, every unanswered text, every time Eric clears his throat, every time Brooke's footsteps echo, every time Taylor smiles because she refuses to lose to a memory. The showdown wasn't just a scene, it was a reset. Father and son didn't break, they braced. The wedding now has a countdown, and the house has a fuse.